Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Less than 48 hours after the Battle of Antietam, a special correspondent for the New York Tribune filed a report after walking the debris-strewn grounds around the gently arched stone bridge, the one pictured here, which had been a focal point of stiff resistance by well-placed Confederates against Union forces attempting to cross it on September 17th, 1862. The builders who had constructed it 26 years earlier to cross Antietam Creek and connect Sharpsburg with the nearby village of Rohrbach could not have imagined that it would be the scene of death and destruction on the bloodiest single day in American military history. The bridge, as you students of the Civil War know, once called Lower Bridge or Rohrbach Bridge, became known for all time for the Union general whose troops fought there, General Ambrose Everett Burnside, Burnside Bridge. I want to share the vivid account filed by the correspondent. It's divided into two parts. The first part talks about the battle around the bridge and gives a sense of where the bridge lay and context to the terrain around it. The second part is eyewitness accounts of what the correspondent saw, the bodies, the debris, and other scenes of carnage. The report is titled The Bridge That Burnside Took, How Hotly It Was Defended, Death on the Battlefield, Sad Pictures. From our special correspondent, Keysville, Maryland, September 19th, 1862. The report begins. The bridge across Antietam Creek, which General Burnside was ordered to take, and which was so stubbornly held by the rebels, is situated in a deep ravine. The face of the hill on the opposite side of the bridge is too steep to be ascended by a horse and must be literally climbed to be surmounted by man. You can see that view right here, by the way. The roadway from the bridge turns abruptly to the right and left and rises the hill along its side very gradually. The rebel infantry had first occupied the bridge itself and the bank of the creek on our side, and a rebel battery was posted on the opposite hill directly above the bridge so as to play upon our infantry as it approached the bridge, either from directly before it or from our right of the bridge. Some trees intervened on our left of the bridge immediately down upon the creek, but the approach down the hill on our side was bare in all directions and exposed to the view of the enemy's gunners. The bridge is a stone arched and stone parapeted structure, a strong, tough country bridge. The rebel prisoners state the number stationed to hold the bridge against us at from 150 to 300 infantry. It is hardly credible that a point to which any importance was attached on either side should be entrusted to so small a force, and the incredibility is heightened by the havoc that was made among at least four of our regiments. Yet I am inclined to believe that a not much higher figure than the last would cover the actual number. I think there was not more than one regiment assigned to that duty, and as regiments go in armies that have been over a year in service, it did not probably number more than 500 men. The chance is less. I noticed that both our officers and men engaged in that contest are totally wanting in their usual claim of superior numbers against them, a claim commonly enough true whenever they have found much difficulty in making head against a foe, and, in fact, seem to concur in reporting and repeating what the rebels state, and they're significantly letting the matter drop. On our part, Burnside had a couple of batteries on a hill on our left of the bridge at something less than a right angle with it, and a very little to our right of the bridge was another battery on another point of the same range of hills, just opposite to the enemy's battery. The parapets formed excellent breastworks against our batteries on either hand and were protection against our small arms from the same direction. The creek was fordable hereabouts. It has rained since in several places, some of them, however, necessitating waist deep wading. It was attempted to cross in this manner as well as by the bridge. The 2nd Indiana, who were first ordered to the attack, did not get down to the water. That regiment and the 6th New Hampshire were repulsed, but not until they had made some impression on the rebel defense and left it weaker against succeeding regiments. The 51st Pennsylvania was the first to cross. The 51st New York supported its Pennsylvania namesake or number sake and was close with it, but a little less forward. The bridge itself was not the only part of the creek defended against our attempt to cross. Our left was resisted all along its banks for many rods above and below. The enemy selected this as the front of this part of the line for its strong natural defenses, and also having reference to the line of woods a mile or so in his rear for a hiding place and an entrenchment in case he was driven back in spite of his best bona fide efforts to stand firm, or having reference to the woods as his real battle line into which he hoped to decoy us in pursuit of whatever success we might obtain, either in spite of him or in pursuance of his strategy. The bridge is no more noticeable than any other portion of the creek on our left wing, excepting that its stone parapets added so much artificial defense to the natural defense of the abrupt and rough line of hill and wood along the stream. The movement for the capture of this line of position was commenced between 10 and 11 in the morning and was not crowned with success throughout until between 3 and 4 in the afternoon. But the wonder is that it was taken at all. It was while crossing this creek up to his waist in water that Captain Griswold received his death wound. His regiment, the Connecticut 11th, was one of the regiments under General Rodman that attempted to and finally succeeded after several hours fighting and crossing half a mile or so below the bridge. Our cannonading on our left so far exceeding the anticipation of our generals in rapidity and duration, it will do now to say that General Burnside exhausted all his ammunition for some of his guns before the day was fairly done. As for the rebels, they probably could not have fought a general battle at all and would not have made a stand but for their immense acquisitions at Harper's Ferry, the recent capture of Harper's Ferry. Whatever the mourning the battle has caused in the hundreds and thousands of families in the land for those who may never return to them, whatever of discomfort they may suffer from the death or disabled condition of 10,000 husbands and fathers, whatever of these and a train of evils may flow from this greatest and bloodiest of the battles of this unparalleled, preposterous revolution, it is all immediately chargeable to the surrender of Harper's Ferry. It is strange what a difference there is in the composition of human bodies with reference to the rapidity that change goes on after death. Several bodies of rebels strewed on the ground along the bank in the vicinity of the bridge. They fought behind trees and fence rail and stone heap barricades, as many a bullet mark in all these defenses amply attested. But all that availed not to avert death from these poor creatures. They had been dead at least 48 hours when I looked at them. Almost all of them had become discolored in the face and much swollen. But there was one young man with his face so lifelike and even his eye so bright, it seemed almost impossible that he could be dead. It was the loveliest looking corpse I ever beheld. He was a young man, not 25, the soft, unshaved, brown beard hardly asserting yet the fullness of its owner's manhood. The features were too small and the character of the face of too small and delicate in order to answer the requirements of masculine beauty. In death, his eye was the clearest blue and would not part with its unsurpassingly gentle, amiable, good, and charming expression. The face was like a piece of wax, only that it surpassed any piece of wax work. One other young man, beardless yet but of a brawnier type, furnished quite another example of slow decomposition. His face was not quite as lifelike, still, one could easily fancy him alive to see him anywhere else than on the field of carnage, and strange, his face wore an expression of mirth, as if he had just witnessed something amusing. A painful sight, especially, was the body of a rebel who had evidently died of his wounds after lingering long enough, at least, to apply a handkerchief to his thigh himself as a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. His comrades were obliged to leave him, and our surgeons and men had much else to do, so that they could not attend him in time. Perhaps nothing would have saved him, but perhaps again a little surgical aid was all he needed. How long he dragged out his lessening pulse in pain, no one can tell. Subsequently, I visited the ground intervening between our pickets and the pickets of the enemy after the fight was done. It was the ground over which our troops had driven the enemy, but which they failed to hold, and it has been since jealously watched by both parties, each prohibiting the other from entering upon it, even to care for his wounded or to bury his dead, if the skirmishing sharpshooters of either could prevent it. Numerous shots were exchanged yesterday between them and the spirit, but today the rebel skirmishers had left ours sole occupants of the field, and we civilians even felt free and safe to wander over the entire battleground without restriction. Our men have been engaged today in looking up their dead comrades and possibly here and there a surviving wounded one over this inhabited district. And this afternoon, your correspondent visited it himself. Had I seen it before jotting down my observations just concluded, 'tis questionable whether I should have had the spirit of charity enough to mention the rebels, living or dead, for anything but malediction. One field especially was thickly strewn with our dead, in which the Hawkins Zouaves, 9th New York Volunteers, were largely represented. Several members of the 103rd New York lay there also. Away across the fields, for a mile within the enemy's battle line, our gallant soldiers had charged and chased the chivalry, but afterward had been obliged to retire before the enemy's batteries, leaving their fallen comrades on the ground. Every dead man's feet I saw were robbed of their shoes, and there were instances of our heroic boys being stripped of their pantaloons. Their arms and accoutrements were invariably taken, of course. On the other hand, I record it with a sense of relief from disgust at my kind. The enemy's dead within our reach lay just as they fell, untouched, excepting as their names might be sought after on their clothes, or the buttons might be cut off by the soldiers for trophies or remembrances of the field. God only knows what some of our poor men have suffered before they died. It is to be hoped that none, or few at worst, died lingering deaths. A few of our soldiers we found alive, who had been on the ground from their falling to Thursday evening, more than 24 hours. They were at last picked up by the rebels, taken into a barn nearby for surgical care, and paroled and left behind when the enemy evacuated the field, as he did in the course of last night. I took the names. Captain C.T. Bowen, Company I, 4th Rhode Island. He is wounded in the thigh. Notwithstanding the delay in surgical attendance, he seemed this afternoon to feel comfortable and to be doing well. Corporal Hilton, Company A, 4th Rhode Island, and Private George Wood, Company I, same regiment. Hilton had a ball enter the sole of his foot and leave at his instep. Wood is walking about well enough for ordinary purposes. Then there were two men of the 16th Connecticut, James D. Garrett, Company D, and Robert P. Morgan, Company E. Garrett was shot twice in the back and once in the leg. Two balls had been extracted. The third remained inside. Morgan had his skull broken, laying the brain bare. He could not receive the surgical attention due to his case until he should get into hospital. All were paroled. The rebels have enough on their hands just now without wounded prisoners. Some of the rebel missiles are military curiosities. One of the Hawkins Zouaves showed me a great big striped white marble that had hit him after it was spent from a cannon. Another soldier, a cultivated young man known to literary friends of mine, told me of a comrade picking up the sheet iron plate of a door lock, all rolled up, keyhole perfect in it, no mistake, which had fallen near him from a rebel cannon. The key had probably been sent in another direction. A big, nervous-headed, little-bodied, amiable-faced rebel lay in the same barn with Dr. Bowen and the others named. He told me his name, but I reserve it. He said he was worn out and sick, and when his army moved to retire across the Potomac, he fell out on a natural pretext enough and lay down to rest. His own regiment passed on and left him. He then moved further out of the sight and lay down in some straw, and finally went into that barn when our troops had advanced far enough to protect him. He hoped he should not be exchanged. He wanted to be paroled so that he could not fight anymore. He said he would not continue with the army another 4 months for $10,000. He joined it by conscription in North Carolina, where he resides. So there you have the story of a war correspondent filed 48 hours after the Battle of Antietam, an eyewitness to the battleground around Burnside Bridge and other areas, discussing the fight, discussing the debris and the carnage of the battlefield and the wounded who were left behind. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.